CEO and co-founder Aron Beierschmitt, as well as our growth director Ziori. Take it away, y'all. Good morning.
Good morning, Sparkly. Thank you, as always, for the wonderful intro. Not much at the top of the hour for me today. I think I just want to kind of mention how proud I am of the LG team for pushing through what was a kind of massively chaotic week last week to re-deliver the entirety of the product suite to the community. Added on to that, a brand new marketplace, and obviously all of the bridges that we built. And so, that kind of marked the end of really what was quite a long sprint for us to get to the finish line. And again, maintaining such high data integrity throughout that process and pulling it off, there's really very few teams in the space that can execute at that level. So, very, very excited. It feels like we've made it once again to the starting line and pumped to see the continued marketing and growth efforts that we have planned both this month and really through the remainder of the summer. So the expectation on that front is very much that we start to see, or continue, I should say, to see scale and new players coming in. So, really feel like we've gotten this kind of breath of fresh air, new life into the community with all the newcomers kind of showing up. And again, we expect that to continue to accelerate as the remainder of the Vanguard Quest stuff kicks off and then really continues throughout the coming months. So, extremely excited for what lays ahead. And again, just very happy to kind of be past the migration effort. A lot of engineers just referred to it as a port. It was boring. Now we get to go back to real feature work and development, which is exciting. So, um,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I'd love to save the rest for questions. Last last town hall, we took it up with a big presentation. So now we've got plenty of time to get in the shit, see what's top of mind with the community, and get the answers everyone craves, Sparkly.
Yeah, and just a few things that I'll tag on there. A lot to be excited about in the CU space. Obviously, Shadow Corns are live now. That happened this week. That was the final piece of the migration. So Shadow Forge is back. If you haven't gone and checked out your Shadow Corns and reverted to your minion army work, you should definitely go take a look. Also, a reminder that Shadow Corn Supremacy, we used to call it Shadow Corn Prestige. This is that point system where you're always on this like passive leaderboard. That's a mixture of the Shadow Corns you have, their rarity, how many minions you have, the rarity, and all that stuff. That pays out like regular daily rewards, and you need to claim those at least every 7 days, or else they expire. So you're getting Unum and CU passively if you have a Shadow Corn. So make sure you're going to the claims page and claiming that stuff, because that's part of the beauty of Shadow Corns, right? There's only 3,000, and you get a little passive love while you're working on your army, and of course, all the resources to build your minion army. So awesome stuff there. Also, just wanted to highlight Unicorn Bingo and thank everybody for their efforts and all the feedback and just enjoying Bingo while we had the migration downtime. We're going to have some stats about Bingo coming up probably tomorrow that we're going to share with the community and the public that we're really proud of. I think Bingo was a big success. Obviously, there were some scaling issues at moments when we saw these big rushes of players, but overall, the feedback for the actual game and concept was pretty positive. The amount of CU consumed and wagered was all really fantastic and positive. So some big learnings there. And again, the first app that went through the full process and got the thumbs up from Apple to have in-app real money wagering with crypto directly through the App Store. Hard to understate how awesome that is, both for us as a company that we have that, but also just to move the needle forward of blockchain games, App Store. They're starting to work together, right? Like, this is a sign that could be a distribution path for us moving forward. So again, I don't want to gush too long here, but really, really exciting stuff, Aaron. And then all the things that we have for 4.x in the canon that we talked about in the last town hall. Obviously, all that is still in progress, and excited to get that next round of updates out, because that really is the next round of fun stuff.
Definitely agree there. And to add on to things, next week we are going to kick off our official partnership with Neo Tokyo. More details to come. And there's no better time to promote CU to the crypto gaming community. So let's go. For more information, head over to the marketing updates channel, where Mitch will keep you updated with all the facts in the news and updates category. All right, let's head over to some questions. We have a We have a couple of gentlemen in the anonymous questions form today. Let's start with this. Mr. Bear, I have sent over 20 tickets for stuck eggs in nurseries in the last 48 hours. If I was a new player, I would probably smash my laptop. However, this is not my first rodeo, so I just turned to my other vices while submitting Zendesk tickets. How high of a priority is this for the Lagoon to fix? What?
First off, slow down. You're going to hurt your corns. You know, at a certain point, you got to give them some rest. Um,
Agree.
it's known and it's high priority, is really all I need to say on that front. Obviously, there were over 700 breeds or something, 660 something breeds, and then hundreds of evolves yesterday. So, like, this is not a um, blocking issue for the majority of people. If you haven't included the absolute maximum amount of detail in your tickets, you're not being helpful in helping us figure out why you happen to be having a problem. So the more information you share on that front, the better it will be, the quicker it will get fixed. We do recognize there's an issue and we are prioritizing it as a P0. So I hope that is helpful.
100%. And to add to that, the CM team is actively monitoring the situation, so please let us know on Discord if anything is up. Message us on mod support. We will be happy to help.
Yeah, I can also say that the CS team, that's customer support, the desk that handles all the Zendesk stuff. Time Traveler shared some great feedback yesterday in the Sirius channel, or maybe it was the day before. LG Daryl is the guy that leads the support desk. So believe me when I say the CS team is also like, wow, this is a lot of tickets. We'd love, to figure out this as well. So they've done a good job escalating it. As Aaron said, the tickets are really helpful. I know it's like a grind and a slog to have to fill that stuff out, but it really does help the CS team be able to whittle it down to go to the engineers and say, hey, we've identified like the core of the problem. Here's like a pattern that where this is probably where the problem lies because all these tickets have this one thing in common that seems to be the common denominator. So really appreciate the efforts there. And I think Daryl is actively trying to find ways to streamline the process in the interim before we can fix the root cause so that it's a little bit quicker to get stuff unstuck. So hang in there, per usual. We solve a bunch of things and then something else pops up and gets escalated to P0. So 100% team is aware and understands that this is like a thing that really needs to be addressed. So we're on it.
Agreed. Okay, let's have another anonymous question. Here's the hecking chonker. All right, get ready, y'all. Take your sips of coffee while I read. Hello and good day. I have often felt that there is a large disconnect between the small player base and the development team. None of the team plays CU at any serious level, and I feel that is reflected in almost every update. I know Mitch has his one account and started as just a community member, but he is an outlier and not in charge of the economy or game design. The lack of serious gameplay in LG members has clearly viewed what? During the tribe's leaderboard and other past leaderboards through Univu. There's also not very many reasons to sync CU tokens. Land upgrades and breeding, but breeding is heavier on Unim and land upgrades are generally poor ROI after a point. Gems and tribe materials were put on the back burner and more syncs are desperately needed. While looking at other games, I noticed a stark contrast. Jihos is very active in promoting collectible axes and even plays Origins and keeps up with the meta. He knows which players own which assets and is quite involved with the game side of Axie, not just the business side. Luke from Pixels is another example of a founder who is very involved with the intricacies of the game and speaks on them often. Those are just some common examples from the space, but there are many, many others in most Web3 projects at the moment. This is not a knock on Laguna, but more a plea for change. We've had some very bad KOLs, such as Tug of War, which required the winners to set alarms through the night for 2 months straight. It turned the loop from a stat breeding contest into a who can give up their life for 60 days. The P2A and Daily Zyre Awards are very much geared towards OGs. I don't think this will attract new players when the current OGs are cannibalizing the majority of their awards. It feels like there was not much thought into how these systems all mesh and how players would react to carrots. Jousting is still a non-stop spam fest. Incentives don't feel aligned all the time, and some parts of the economy just fall off a cliff. Right now, it's gems and high stats. They feel very underwhelming because they are not properly incentivized anymore. They're probably referring to jousting. My questions to you, sir, are firstly, do you agree that there needs to be team members actively playing CU at the highest level to understand how to align the players in Laguna? Secondly, how can you improve the communication between the devs and the community? We rarely hear from devs without causing an uproar in Sirius, and it would be nice to have more back and forth with someone who's specifically tweaking the economy or designing the game loops. I'd like to
Well, we had the over under on when the community would get back to exactly what they've been saying to us for 2+ years. And, we hit, less than a week or whatever it's been. So that's hilarious. We're right back where we've always been. We do play the game. Obviously, I don't expect engineers to be playing the game daily because they're working, right? That is the reality of game development. If you're actually working, you're not going to be playing the damn game every day. Of course, I play the game every day, and key product and design team members play the game every day. So I disagree completely with the point that we're not paying attention. We obviously disagree around specific design concerns that whoever this person happens to be has. Let's address the CU sinks. Just wrong. Go look at the data. 12% total supply burn is what we're looking at currently in the game based on the early trends in both CU being sunk through breeding and Evo, as well as CU being sunk in the marketplace via direct buys and then the paired fee. So it's a great example of like, you wrote this whole big thing, go actually look at the data before you come to me and make a statement that is untrue, okay? So you're wrong about that as well. And then the last thing that I'll say is like, generally, if you don't see why this is this play to airdrop is the best one we've ever done, I can't help you. The fact that you're literally getting daily Zai from coming in and doing a few clicks to me is incredibly new player friendly. And if we didn't have stuff for the OGs to do, you'd have the opposite statement, which is you'd be pissed that there was no content for the OGs, right? It's difficult to get this wall of text from an anon who's unwilling to come up and actually have a conversation around these things. And so, at the end of the day, it's just funny. We're back in the same space we've always been, where there's this cohort of players who's unhappy. You have to realize that we're actually still one of the largest games in terms of actual playing players in the entirety of the space. Yes, the new meta is to have a bunch of free-to-play players who drive zero value to an actual economy, and look how well that's going for Pixels. So I disagree with a lot that was said there around both the design, how much the community should play. As far as like Jiho and Luke from Pixels, I have been talking to Andrew about this. Like, generally, I despise social media. It's just not ever something that I've really used. It's very difficult for me to get up there and just throw bullshit out like many founders in the space. I recognize there's kind of this expectation around it. I hope that people realize that like these town halls are my way to do it, because I actually get in here into the breach in real time with the community on a frequent basis. In addition to that, I'm very focused on, going out and, we're about to do this Neo Tokyo AMA, right? And the Hustlepedia AMA. And so I get out and I do that in my own way. And then, of course, I go in and I put $100,000 of my own capital on the line in CULP, and I go and buy corns in the marketplace and these things. And so, again, in my own way, I go forward and try to do what I think is going to be best for this project and for this community. And of course, my record exists both on chain as well as in every damn town hall we've done since the beginning. So you can kind of go back. I mean, that was the funny thing about this post is you mentioned a bunch of things that literally happened last year. You didn't mention the tribes leaderboard, which had the greatest amount of participation of any leaderboard we'd ever put. Actually was a profitable leaderboard, and that we paid out less than people put in because y'all enjoyed smashing the shit out of each other, proving the 4X strategy thesis here. So it's just funny to me. We're once again in this state where everyone seems to be down, but you're not looking out at other projects and really the reality of this space. No one has figured it out. I continue to believe that our thesis is best and actually driven by what we've learned. So one thing that I'd encourage, and Sparkly, I may be done with the non-questions going forward, is I want people to come up and actually have enough wherewithal to like have a conversation around these things versus this, blanket text that has a bunch of assumptions, a bunch of things that are blatantly false, seems to be very weirdly focused on like last year or the last 2 years of issues instead of like more currently and more recent. And so it's just hard to have these conversations without some back and forth. And again, a community member actually willing to step up and have a conversation versus this kind of async weirdness. So I don't know, Zori, you might have a slightly different opinion on this, but I just want a little bit more interaction around this stuff instead of just getting a wall of text that, again, is like just wrong in a lot of places and seems to be weirdly looking backwards instead of looking at where we're at and even more recently what has occurred.
Part of me feels bad for not interrupting earlier because I can't help but imagine that the person that wrote that is trolling to some degree and is laughing so hard right now to hear that really long, serious, emotional answer. So there is a lesson to be learned of not taking debate. I do believe there's a lot of value in a non-questions overall, and that doesn't mean we have to weight every non-question equally. And some we can go, hey man, here's a few things you should go Google, come back and send us another question next week. But I think the one piece that I would say is maybe valid in that is I would like to see folks like Jeff engage a little bit more with the community. And you guys have the ability to do that. I know in the past we've had rules about tagging LG members, but I think that's in like a toxic, like, Jeff, fix this kind of thing. But if you have like a, hey, I had this idea and I wonder if this could be possible, I'd love to pick Jeff's brain about it. That's what Sirius is for. You can totally write up a little paragraph and tag Jeff and me and say, hey, is this a valid thought? Tell me why this works. Tell me why it doesn't, that kind of thing. So it is a little bit of a two-way street. You guys have heard Jeff talk on town halls. He's a little bit of an introverted guy. He likes playing games, making games. He's not a talker by nature. So he'll respond if you tag him, for sure. He likes engaging with this kind of stuff. And that's why he just bought this quad mythic baby. We just recorded the first video with me and him breeding it. That's a little bit of a soft breeding guide. It's like some TikTok style where I'm always working on trying to get Jeff out of his shell a little bit. We're going to be bringing him to Vegas for the Rare Evo event. So I do agree with you. And we're definitely working on getting Jeff out of his shell and forcing him to be in front of the community, maybe even more than he would like, all things equal. Sismal or Matthew, another great example of someone we've hired that has been in Sirius quite a bit. He's working on puzzle battler and tribe stuff and game design things that are coming up like later this year or early next year. So once his things are revealed, you're going to be hearing from him a lot more and just seeing the fruits of that labor. And believe me, Sismal likes to talk, and he will be very excited to talk to you guys and hear all of your feedback and hear all of your complaints. That was one of the big reasons we wanted to hire him. So I would say that's valid and something that within my scope I'm actively trying to work on. I'm practicing making more TikTok content on my personal time now, and I'm hoping that's going to translate to unicorn stuff as well, and more snappy kind of, hey, how do we get stuff that'll hold people's attention, and how can we get the best of Jeff in 90 seconds worth of snappy, quickly edited content. Shout out to Fluffy Unicorn for her ability to take my 20-minute videos and edit those down to 90 seconds. So but yeah, I hear you. We definitely want to focus on folks that want to come on stage and that really want to engage and go deep and kind of have some back and forth and that kind of stuff. But the irony of a non-questions is it gets abused very quickly, but it's something that no one else really does. So it's we all have strengths and weaknesses. Aron is an amazing salesman. We have this Zai deal because of his ability to sell and understand our product and really go deep in the DeFi ecosystem and engage with other people that are very deep in the DeFi ecosystem. Very few people can do that. And that's why people like me are here to help fill that other side of, while Aron's crushing it and making sure our treasury doesn't go bust, I'm going to show up and talk and try to engage more. So I'm certainly no Jiho, but yeah, we're talking, man. We're here. So sorry, I don't want to dwell on this too long, but that would be my only addition. I think Sismal's asleep. I wish he was here, but he's been on the gamer schedule, dude.
100%.
Burning
Yeah,
the
I think
midnight
he fell
oil.
asleep. Bro just sent me like a sample, and then he dropped off the face of the earth.
Yeah, dude, he crushed it making a product demo last night. I was like, hey, here's a playable demo of what I'm thinking about. And I went, oh,
Yeah.
geez, man, this is incredible. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
I told him, you're up early today. He was
yeah,
not
no,
up
he was
early.
up late.
In
Yeah.
sleep. Yeah, so that's just something to highlight, chat. The more that the devs, the designers are in serious, the less time and resources that they have to do those kinds of wonderful things. So it's actually okay that the devs and designers are not on serious looking at every message. I'd rather that we focus on meaningful interactions with them. Like we do have every now and then, we do have a working session. We look at the gameplay loops and what is to come, and the community is very happy about that. So I'd rather we focus on something that the the designers and the devs can look at for a shorter amount of time and give out more information than for them to spend their active hours looking at serious and letting that affect their work. All right. Let's do the next question. When distribute the missing Zai from daily rewards? Pretty sure we're already working on this. We did have some
I think
misdistributed
most of
jousting
it
rewards. Yeah, it's been
went
distributed.
out. Yeah, unless there was another event, if they're talking about the thing from the weekend with there was an issue with jousting, and then the day after jousting, there was another issue that affected the daily login and questing and the other stuff. That stuff, I believe, has gone out. If there was something else that happened, you're having a separate issue, then obviously open up a Zendesk ticket. But all of those rewards from jousting have gone out. The key thing for jousting stuff is if you claim after the jousting weekend ends, the points for that will be applied forward when jousting opens on the following week, right? Because jousting only runs 2 days per week on Friday, Saturday, or Saturday, Sunday, depending on where you are in the world. When jousting's down, anything that gets claimed just gets pushed towards that first day. So that first day is when any rewards that you feel like you're missing could end up showing up. So keep that in mind as well.
All right. I think that's everything for our anonymous questions. Let's move on to the written questions. If you would like to submit a written question, please head over to the Town Hall 57 questions thread. That is on the feedback channel. Let's start with the first one. We have Lay6185. Hi, fairly new player. Hello, Lay. Was wondering when the staking leaderboard rewards might be distributed. In particular, the progression items. They would really help as a new player.
Should be this month on that front. So yeah, no worries, and we're very focused on getting those out for the exact reason that you mentioned there, which is yes, it will be very helpful for early player progression. So yeah, look forward to that this month.
All right. We have some questions from Aeolus. Hello, 3 questions regarding jousting. Could we know the reasoning behind the change of the jousting gift box reward for 16th spot in all 3 brackets? I understand the nerfs for the jousting gift box. It needed to be reevaluated with the new daily rewards. But why are we adding another layer of nerfs on top of this? The jousting situation is currently not really encouraging to keep breeding high stat corns and even less to put gems on them. Daily rewards are not making up for the nerfs, and by far we were told it would be barely the same or even higher. But it seems different.
Yeah, I can kick this one off, and then maybe Aaron will have a little more color to add. I owe you guys an update on this. So, long story short, some of you might remember in March we were trying to slow down CU emissions and had rolled out this change, and then there was a longer downtime as some back-end stuff was getting updated, and we decided to revert it based on community feedback, and it just didn't feel like the time to really hit jousting emissions. So we kicked the can down the road, and there was a little bit of a miscom internally where the idea was, of course, post-migration, always, we need to reduce CU emissions. We have new Xi emissions that are going to be added into the game, but we need to make sure we don't have runaway rewards with CU, right? Lowering the supply that's out there helps control things, and number go up is still the goal rather than maximizing the amount of CU that goes out the door, right? So we're always trying to be conscious of emissions and find that middle ground of holding true to the play to earn thesis and making sure there are opportunities always to get some CU, the governance token, from participating in the ecosystem, but also not hyper rewarding people to the point that it's a detriment to the economy, right? You guys know this. This is the game that we're playing here. This is what we're trying to figure out in terms of the commitment we've made to being a blockchain game first. And you've heard Aaron say many times, we have a lot of options to regress to free-to-play Web 2.5, Web 2, and we actively choose not to. That's why we haven't made Unum a soft currency yet. We could do that. We've thought about doing that. We've talked about it, but it just doesn't, it hasn't felt like the right thing to do yet. It's not off the table completely, but we take pride in the fact that we're still very blockchain first, and if you believe that a super cycle is likely to be coming, then it's a bet that still very much feels worth upholding. So that long ramble is to say the goal was always to try to slow down EU or CU in the post-migration era, but we did roll out this change in a bit of a sloppy way, and there was a miscom in terms of the what's new in CU post. Myself and CM didn't realize this change was rolling out right away with 4.0. So apologies for that. We didn't really mean to just drop it and not communicate with you. At the very least, it should have been included in the post. So that was just a mess up. Myself and Jeff are probably to blame for that general miscom. The plan moving forward, we're going to take another weekend and see what the kind of the spread looks like in terms of rewards, and then see if we need to make some changes. It seems like we have some options to revert back to a similar system and then just change some numbers so we can find a middle ground that has slightly better levers now that we don't have to worry as much about integers, right? We have decimals integrated now that it's CU instead of RBW. So we'll be looking hard at the data next week after everyone's back from the 4th of July holiday. A lot of us are American, so we'll have a long weekend here, and then this great jousting weekend will give us even more data, and we'll see what's going on and further discussion. All that is to say, keep in mind that right now our focus is seriously new player growth, and obviously the play to earn or play to airdrop campaign and a lot of the rewards are skewed towards the bottom. A lot of people have been saying bronze is really profitable, and it's like, yeah, because we want people to be able to touch jousting. A lot of new players have said in DMs and various feedback, like, hey, jousting seems cool, but I just get pummeled and I just lose immediately every time. And what am I doing wrong? And when the answer is, you're not really doing anything wrong. You're just at the beginning and your unicorns suck because you didn't put in thousands of dollars. We want to try to get those folks hooked into the loop a little bit more and give them a taste. Give them a taste here. And then hopefully after the taste is slowed down or tampered back or these campaigns end, some of those people stick around and go, all right, fuck it. I'm buying a 2,000 total stack corn. I'm doing it. I'm going big. I know what I can do. I know what I need to do. Let's do it. Or, 2,500 stack corn or whatever. And anecdotally, I've seen some people do that already. So that's the thesis we're working on right now. We're placing a lot of bets on new player growth. New players are new customers for you existing players. The next 2 to 3 months especially, we're trying to go hard on Xi. We're trying to make this big splash. July is going to be all about this new Vanguard campaign, pushing people to the core game, getting people to stake, getting people to buy assets, getting people to participate in our actual game loop. And then in August, it's going to be big time Rainbow Rumble. We have this whole esports vertical planned. We're going to be doing some tournaments. There's going to be qualifiers. It's going to be different than just a regular leaderboard like last time. So we have a lot of beats coming up that they're 100% going to be focused on the new players. So OGs right now, I want to say this loudly. We haven't forgotten about you. We value you. We love you. That's why we have people like Sysmal building this Elder Game puzzle battler. And I want to see that be a system where players will need to leverage the assets that you guys have, right? You OGs are the infrastructure builders, and I want to create this market kind of loot rush style where you have folks that just want to compete in an Axie Classic style game, but go, all right, well, if I had like 5 3K stack corns, I could really kick ass. Then they have to go to somebody like Neviolo or Dipbeak or whoever else and say, hey, let me scholar style get some of those corns delegated, and I'll grind for you and I'll put in the hours. And that classic scholar model can actually have a value prop trade. So we need new players to execute that. But I promise you, all of this is in an effort to grow the ecosystem so that you guys can benefit alongside the rest of us. So, Aron, sorry that was a soapbox. I didn't mean to get that deep with it, but there's like a lot of context here. So it's so much more than just, hey, we're nerfing your rewards. Like, please try to not think of it that way, especially in this next like 2 to 3 month sprint where like we are just laser focused on new players. And that doesn't mean we're trying to neglect OGs, but you guys had a moment in the spotlight before the migration where you had some great rewards, and we've tried our best to really thank and reward you for sticking around and investing in the ecosystem. I promise you gems are going to be useful when the puzzle battler comes out and all that. And there's more work to do, but we're working on it. We got great stuff to roll out. The roadmap is not dead. So I'll pass the mic now.
I mean, you said it best. I was going to, touch on the idea that we care far more about new players than our OGs. I hate to say it as simple as that. The OGs should recognize exactly why that matters. And so
don't tell them that.
Again, stay really, 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 focused and aware on like the entire purpose of all of these systems is to distribute tokens equal to new demand, or ideally slightly below it. And then the tokenomics actually work out in a way that the entire space kind of cares about. So a lot of these debates, we can get in the weeds and get really nuanced around it, but you have to understand and recognize and appreciate the structure of how we set this up. And so I think, Andrew, what you called out on the bronze bracket and things of that nature is very important, and it is actually intentional. And then the idea that we're talking about nerfs, it's like, well, okay, we did tuning, and then the price of Xi dropped very significantly, so that obviously changed the value of rewards rather significantly on us, literally over a weekend, right after we had pushed the game out and tuning with it. And so we're trying to and we'll be kind of keeping a week or bi-monthly cadence of tuning updates to make adjustments, because once again, we deal with a live kind of real market on that front. So anyway, it's important to kind of consider the problems that we deal with on our end when bringing forward stuff like this. I get whatever this player's hyperfixation on jousting and what they're trying to kind of get out of it. Take a larger look at the overall ecosystem and what we're trying to do and how that potentially has positive effects on your assets would be my recommendation for everyone.
All right. So I think that also answers Aeola's 2 other questions. I guess something that Aeolus also wants to know is, aside from the upcoming puzzler, is there currently an incentive to breed high stat unicorns and put gems on them?
There will be once Twilight Tactics 2.0 occurs and the Shadowcorn attacks start to run rampant again.
Oh boy.
And also,
so, I mean, I get that concern, right? There are many, sorry, Andrew, there are many different ways that we can apply this, right? And, at the end of the day, I could come in with an atomic bomb and set it off on the meta, and we'd have a different set of concerns and problems, right? Like we could automatically tomorrow create the incentive that forces that. I think it would actually be the best possible thing for the economy, but I guarantee you the serious channel would be full sweat, right? We'd need riot gear going in there. So again, I in a lot of this, and of course, I've already had an advisor who's here tell me I've been too snarky and cranky to everybody today. This is almost 3 years now as a founder in the space. Actually, a month from now, literally on the 2nd of August, will be 3 years since we pivoted into this space. You can clearly tell I'm tired of getting very surface level kind of questions and not being able to get in the weeds. It's always my interest and intention to try to really get in the weeds and explain why we're doing things versus these more just kind of broad, vague kind of marketing BS that I see out of a lot of other project founders in the space, right? And so I'm always trying to teach. And then, of course, yes, I take bait around certain things, trying to give the context around how we're looking at making decisions. And then I'd love to hear feedback where you actually disagree with those decisions and you want to come and have, you know, a nuanced debate about it. It's funny, I have to call out certain community members like Fiona who have consistently been concerned about nerfs and have and been largely in support of them in many cases, and have really hammered on us when they've certainly felt you know, that we've gone overboard with it. And that's the tightrope that we walk, is distributing tokens again while trying to anticipate net demand and things of that nature. And so we are really watching, like, it's been great, for example, to see, you know, the largest number of new players we've ever gotten in our history over the last couple of days come in before today, which officially and kind of formally kicks off the Zai Vanguard campaign that really heavily incentivizes players coming into the game. And so it's been interesting to see those mechanics. Again, earlier I call out, like, we're at a 12% total supply burn if the current daily rate of CU burn continues for a year. And that's with, again, a few thousand wallets, right? So we're looking at that and going, shit, what happens if that doubles? What happens if that triples? And so again, try to appreciate the system that we're building and look at the entire context around it, because that's going to help you provide kind of the best feedback for us around this stuff, because it is very nuanced. We're dealing with a live market that is changing in real time, literally by the minute as I watch my Bitcoin block clock tick over. And so again, you know, especially a lot of these questions coming from OGs who have been here 2+ years, right? You've seen us over time react and make changes and actually get a lot quicker with it, right? So focus a little bit more on specific feedback, which is like, hey, I feel like you've applied a nerf here. I think it should be higher for these higher brackets. I do get the concern, like taking a step back on gyms and the pressure around forcing higher stat unicorns and upgrades. But you also have to keep in mind, if we go too brutal with the system, the new players are going to get crushed, right? So there's balance in all of that. I will call out, like with the 4.x suite, and coming early in that suite, you're going to get global timer rollovers, and then you're going to get actual, like, unique limited time quests. And that will give us a lot more opportunity to provide an experience for the OGs. You know, again, we could actually say, well, this quest isn't subject, or at these levels, this player is not subject to Shadowcorn attack and things of that nature. And it gives us more opportunity to tweak the early game experience to ensure that we're not churning people out. Now, the thing that I've been looking at that is a really good sign is the retention, the day-over-day retention of this new cohort coming in is equal to, if not slightly greater, than the golden cohort when we launched the game, right? Which has still been one of the most engaged cohorts I've ever seen in my entire career as a game developer. And so, again, there's a lot of really good signs very, very early into the largest kind of growth marketing campaign we've ever pulled out. So again, keep the feedback coming, but it's more helpful if you appreciate the full system and are trying to give us feedback in the context of, like, here's the approach that we took and here's how you'd suggest we change it.
Well, and just keep in mind that not everything is building in parallel exactly at all times, right? We've used this analogy a lot. It's assembling a moving train, right? This train is in motion and we're building cars as we go. So it's a little funky. You could also use the analogy of building a house where we're kind of halfway through the second floor, but we're also putting wallpaper and carpeting on the first floor, but there's still a couple doors that haven't come in yet, so we haven't really started painting that side. It's not all done exactly the way that you would expect if you could just do it in a vacuum, because we have to deal with all these live economic forces and, you know, things like a migration. Really glad we migrated, but that wasn't on the original roadmap, right? So a bunch of other feature things went, all right, pause, kick that down the road 6 months. Let's do this migration. Let's do all this back-end server stuff. Let's clean up these things that used to be cutting edge and are already outdated just 2 years removed from when we launched it. That's the kind of chaos that we always have to move around, and why the moving train is assembled sometimes in a weird order. the important thing about gems is the framework is there, right? And to some degree, we do want to be a little careful about the power creep of unicorns. We don't just want everyone making tier 6 gems immediately out of the gate, because that's not fun, right? Making progress over time. The journey is just as fun as the destination, if not more so. So I think it's okay for gems to be a little slow right now. Again, we haven't forgotten about gems. It's just at this specific moment, it's like migration, performance upgrades, batch airlock, all this kind of stuff that like we just kind of got to get done first, and then we can do gem stuff. That is to say, heard the feedback loud and clear. I don't want to spoil announcements that aren't exactly ready, but the idea of like another tribes leaderboard, the first one was very successful. We would very much like to do something like that again, have some ideas in the works, and are thinking about, incentives to get people gem crafting again. So haven't forgotten about it, but poco a poco, as they say in Spanish, little by little, step by step, we got to get some of this other stuff lined up, and then we'll have gems rolling. We got to get the new player incentives all buttoned up and figured out, get the airdrop page all fixed up before we start worrying about getting people crafting gems. We got to get them in the gathering cart first, guys. Y'all have been playing for a few years. Give them a moment. Jeez, let them breathe. There's a lot to digest here. We have a very rich history.
All right.
Please, not the gathering cart.
Not the gathering cart. Okay, we have a question from Goliath Rules. Will there be a Unum wrapped CU Xi pool officially supported by CU? Currently, there is a community-run one, but it's small. From where I stand, that's fine to move in that direction, but just wanted to know if LG or another market maker will help with this pool.
Yeah, that's something that I'm chatting about. I'm certainly open to providing it. There is something interesting in that, the community providing that liquidity. They certainly benefit from fees. One of the nice things about Camelot is it has variable fees based on kind of usage, especially if you do their V3 kind of fancy auto. It basically automatically moves liquidity with price to kind of keep it concentrated around current spot price, et cetera, over time. And so there's some cool tools there that do help in some ways reduce some of the risk of providing LP, and the fees can be relatively high. So kind of similar to times where we've made mistakes and like went out and got an NFT market maker that failed us very quickly and didn't work out, right? And there was frustration amongst the community around, hey, we've actually been providing this kind of market making service. So in this case, I'm kind of interested in seeing the community put it forward. I might do some personally on my side. There should also be a note generally that on Arbitrum 1 on mainnet, if you're providing CU wrapped ETH liquidity on the V3 pool, you're actually getting ARB incentives. That's how Camelot does it. It was only through their V3 pool. So, of course, our V2 pool is not eligible for those incentives. And it's something like 2K ARB a week right now, right? I'm hopeful that they expand that to their L3 deployments, and then there would be kind of this added incentive for organic liquidity provisioning. But it's something we'll continue to monitor. Obviously, very happy to see Xi, up the liquidity on the network via their own market making initiatives and stuff. And so anyway, steps in the right direction there. It's something we'll continue to monitor. But yeah, I'm very interested in seeing if people will organically do this, as there is a real incentive there to do so. And hopefully we get things like the ARB emissions as well as kind of additional incentive on that front.
Sounds good. Okay, speaking of Xi, we have Zagarian asking us to tell us more about the 101 Xi-themed unicorn, because they love the great idea and design of this corn. What will a player have to do for a chance to win it? How do you guys come up with a design of this unicorn? And is there a name for it already? Do we name it Fleefer?
I don't believe there is a name for the corn yet, actually. So we can start soliciting that from the community for sure. Massive shout out to the art team. I actually do not know the individual concept artist that came up with the exact Xi corn look and feel, but I'm here for it. As far as how it will get won, I'm not sure we want to reveal that alpha yet. But it will be something that gets announced here imminently.
Yes,
Rice is tight.
not ready to be. I don't want to steal Mitch's thunder because it is a major beat. We just wanted to get it out there so folks could start getting excited about it. In the past, we've had times where we've said, "Hey, you win like the one of one unicorn design pending," and I think it hits much better the other way when you do some marketing material with the corn, get it out there, get people jazzed about it, and then talk about how it gets implemented to win. So strategically trying to do it the other way around now, because the artwork for the one of ones really does stand out. I think the key thing with the one of ones is for it's really great when we can do two at a time. I love the model that we did last time with the leaderboard where the winner gets one and then somebody in like the top 50 or the top 100 or some still pretty high placement, but there's a random draw element. So it's not just the richest player wins. It's great to reward somebody who really does go ham and support the economy, but you also want to give people a chance that worked really hard and did put in a lot, but just don't have $100,000 to spend. These things get real top heavy at a certain point. So that's a model that we really love. I think with the Xi one, it makes sense to do something maybe a little more objective. But yeah, plenty more one of ones coming. There's going to be 99 one of ones, I think, ever. So we're like not even in double digits yet. So there's a lot of runway still on one of one unicorns. I'm really excited about developing that out more and accelerating the release of those also.
Very high. But Rice also adds, if the community wants to know more about those one-on-one corns behind the scenes story, please give the team a shout out. Maybe our social media team can work some magic. Ooh, fluffy. Okay, we have a message from Fat Ivan. He says, since the migration, does the data look better or worse than what is expected? Does the team feel like we've never been this confident that CU will be a great success?
Yeah, it's a great question to ask, and it touches on kind of what I was saying earlier. And obviously, it's early in the morning for me, so I hadn't had enough coffee to really shout it from the rooftops at the beginning. But we've already kind of hit a point where we're back to parity on the Polygon side in terms of what we were seeing in the final days of Polygon. And again, we're seeing more new players enter the game. We've had the most new players enter the game who already hold assets, whether it was through the drop or they've purchased, since we launched, right? And so all of that is great because the first Xi Vanguard campaign, which I believe kicks off later today, Pacific time, is the first true pointed incentive at trying to drive, people into the game, both paid players as well as kind of these, free players who hit eyeballs, get into the tutorial, go to the marketplace, and we start to see, okay, how's that working, right? We had double marketplace revenue or treasury inflow from the day before yesterday to yesterday, which is great. So seeing that approach, $1,000 a day in terms of the actual treasury inflows, it's like fantastic. It shows those people are showing up at the marketplace volume is working. That's now getting passed to the treasury. And of course, will be split 50-50, 50% going staying in the treasury, 50% being used for buyback and burn. So looking at those metrics, like fantastic. Looking at the amount of CU burn already, again, if it holds the current pace, you're looking at 12% of the total supply, which is about double what we did with the retroactive burn. So that's nearly 20-something% of the circulating supply would get burned this year. And so you look at all these pieces and go, well, shit, it's hard to not be pretty bullish right now about the opportunity ahead. Being this kind of featured and focal point for Xi, I think is great, and they're really rolling out the welcome wagon, if you will, on that front. So yeah, I'm incredibly optimistic about where we sit. We certainly have had or have in front of us the best opportunity in the history of the project to inflect growth. What I want to see is us double to triple kind of paying DAO in the lead up to Rainbow Rumble, see Rainbow Rumble launch and bring a whole new subset of players into the community looking for kind of skill-based PvP gameplay and start to really prove out that idea that we've got this massive funnel across our ecosystem and we are capable of onboarding players via a number of different game loops and kind of core ideas, right? And I think if we get to that level of scale, the amount of burn that we'll see will create a truly hyper deflationary token, which the space has not really seen yet. And I'm very interested in how does that meme, that idea propagate and attract more and more people to our ecosystem. And so anyway, it's great. And obviously we're on the eve of one of the largest NFT collectors kind of coming out and announcing his position in our game and things of that nature. And so, yeah, if you're sitting here and kind of going, well, it looks okay right now. I'm looking at this and going, shit, this is the best we've seen in years at this point. It's a great start. And the opportunity ahead, I think, is here. So I'm super bullish on what the future looks like for us. Obviously, we need a bit of a market turn up here. So if there's one worry that I have that's very much out of my control is we just need to see that. Otherwise, we'll continue to see alts get chopped apart, and we've experienced that before. And the growth is obviously nearly impossible in environments like that. So I remain optimistic that we're going to see a nice and sharp turnaround here in the next few months, and the timing of that with our Play to Airdrop Season 1 campaign, coupled with all of the co-marketing efforts with Zai, the launch of Rainbow Rumble, like future looks bright on that front.
It's maybe worth reiterating just the simple stuff, right? We're getting into this world where it's muddled and complicated, L2s, L3s, how does everything plug into everything? At the highest level, we are Ethereum bulls here, right? Like Aaron and I and all of you are here because of Ethereum, and Ethereum's here because of Bitcoin, right? So we can't forget about the role that Bitcoin does play in this whole ecosystem. But first and foremost, Ethereum is it. That's what we're bullish on. It's what we're most connected to. Arbitrum is on top of Ethereum. Without Ethereum, Arbitrum doesn't exist. Without Arbitrum, Zai doesn't exist. So it's like this skyscraper, and Ethereum is the lobby and the first 5 floors, and without those, the floors on top of it are going to have a lot of trouble if that foundation's not steady. So Ethereum ETF, something we're constantly very excited about. Aaron and I are always talking about the kind of macro markets and just how things are looking, and checking the thesis. There's moments in crypto where you feel like a genius. There's moments where you feel crazy. Sometimes they invert at really strange times. So we're always trying to make sure that we're feeling good about the path that we're on, but we're staying realistic and grounded and not delusional or clinging to hopium of like, we just need Ethereum to go to 5,000. And that's hopium. But being able to look at the market and go, okay, we got the Bitcoin ETF. Okay, we got the Ethereum ETF. The inflows are looking pretty good. There's this vector over here. Zai has this narrative. Arbitrum's doing this. It's all coalescing and starting to compound. So just keep that in the back of your mind when we talk about macro markets and the stuff that we're connected to. What's good for Ethereum is generally going to have some fallout that's good for us, and at higher order, better, good for play to earn gaming. Our competitors and buddies over there at Ronin have a very similar feeling. That thesis is something we're very aligned on, right? At heart, they are Ethereum people. CryptoKitties, all that stuff that kicked off play to earn, it all started with Ethereum, NFTs on mainnet, and that's why we're so excited to be rolling up our data on something that gets rolled up on Ethereum. At the end of the day, we're still right there connected to that EVM ecosystem, and we're really proud of that. So just for any noobs or layman's out there, go Ethereum.
Absolutely. All right, let's cap off this town hall with a final question from NFT Gibby. First off, great job on all of the hard work on the migration. We have come a long way since our first egg sale. So I think their first question has already been answered. Let's focus on the second question. Can you share some of the thought process on how we are targeting new players through the P2A and any further campaigns?
Yeah, the focal point is the Zai Vanguard campaign, which is a heavily incentivized campaign co-marketed with Zai. And that is kind of the focal point of driving attention and eyeballs to our game, to our marketplace, and overall to our ecosystem. So that has already kicked off in a few lightweight ways. Later today, you have the first quest very much designed to get people to come in, connect a wallet, and check the game out. So we're going to have kind of our first, we should expect like the number of DAO to to spike very heavily in terms of free to play. And then the question that we're going to be looking at is like what is the conversion to paid, and how many people are kind of coming into the marketplace and making their first purchase. And I think that the beauty of now having our own native marketplace is we've got end-to-end kind of analytics tracking on that. We can see someone who obviously doesn't have corns or land in the tutorial, click and go over to the marketplace itself. The fact that we have a tutorial now, by the way, is another phenomenal benefit for new players in terms of this on-ramp. But again, you click marketplace, you go out to the marketplace. Where does this person go, right? They look at a few corns, but they don't make a purchase. Okay, what could that say about opportunities to improve the marketplace? And many things already kind of on the list already, like adding purchase bundles, starter bundles, and things of this nature to just very easily aggregate existing listings into bundles that kind of make a one-click purchase. Is going to be a really, really big win. Another huge one is just the integration of Third Web, which allows kind of one-click wallet sign up. Once you have one of those embedded wallets, you don't have to deal with MetaMask prompts, right? It's really a phenomenal experience. I'm in the process of delegating my account to a Third Web wallet I spun up just so I can play without needing to touch MetaMask again. So these things are for sure set up in a way to reduce onboarding friction and kind of get people over that hump. And now, again, we don't lose people when they go to OpenSea. We have very intimate kind of tracking data around the behavior on that marketplace. So again, Xi Vanguard, focal point of marketing. You're going to see a number of KOLs continue to come online throughout the month. I'm doing AMAs with the Neo Tokyo community. We're doing stuff with the Hustlepedia community. Again, Mitch has been sharing these updates in the marketing channel. So if you want all the nitty gritty, juicy details on that front, go check it out. That's basically this month, and then next month Rainbow Rumble becomes the big feature project. It's going to get its own Xi Vanguard campaign, and again, there will continue to be kind of this ongoing eyeballs and attention campaign for the core game. So we've worked very closely with the Xi team on structuring this based on their learnings from past campaigns that they've run, and I do think it's going to give us a really good shot at onboarding and scaling this community. And one of the beautiful benefits of our economy is if we double, triple, quadruple DAO, we've exponentially increased the size of the economy. And what that translates to is the idea that asset prices go up. And 3 years into this, I foundationally believe that's what the majority of people in this space care about. And again, it's why our focus on economy has always been at the forefront. And now with new growth, we have an opportunity to actually spin the flywheel. And I think that naturally drives and brings more attention and more interest into it. And so that's kind of where the hyper fixation is around, like, how do we increase the number of paying customers, the number of paying community members within our ecosystem to obviously drive value or drive liquidity, which spins the flywheel, and it should become I was going to say self-sustaining. Like, that's ultimately the goal, is how do we get the flywheel going to a point that it becomes self-sustaining, right? And many of our plans, which you're going to see in kind of the next town hall, where we go through the 5.x release suite and really talk about how we're layering gameplay on top of the Tribes release, I think we'll begin to give the community a very good idea of how we plan to kind of land this PvP forever game and create a system that constantly forces asset churn and asset churn directly through gameplay, which again helps us lead to a balanced and sustainable kind of system going forward. But to do that, you need new players and growth on that front. So I hope that answers questions. I've got time for any potential follow-ups on that front, because it's certainly a very important thing to touch on and a focus for us.
Right. We have a follow-up from NFT Gibby. This leaderboard feels like a typical CU leaderboard, which is not a bad thing. Rather than it being focused on new players and attracting them to the core game, do you think there will be a leaderboard in the future that will target the bottom of the player funnel with rewards rather than it being top heavy?
One thing I can say on that is
The
that it is
focus.
really hard because it gets abused very quickly if you just say,
100%.
"Hey, sign up and get $100 free bonus," right? If you don't have any way to KYC or do Sybil resistance, then that's just money out to bots, right? So there's already enough in general, like just organic demand to multi-account. We don't want to add extra incentives to like make multi-accounting like the meta for everything, right? It's already something that we have to fight against. So sorry, I'll pass it over to you, Aaron. But that's by default, it's really hard to reward folks by not putting in a lot of work. Proof of play is like the one weapon we have to fight against the bots, right?
That's certainly a concern and one of the challenges in balancing. I mean, my approach is like, listen, if you don't think the daily Xi rewards are a great incentive for new players, obviously there's a Xi Unum pool, and so they've got this opportunity to, either sell it or reinvest in the ecosystem and continue to scale. The more land and corns they have over time, the more Xi that they're going to earn, right? They're getting points for breeding and Evo, which is very important for new players as they scale out their herd. So NFT Gibby, I guess I'm kind of like, well, there's a lot of things in there for, new players already. It may not be attractive to someone who has hundreds of corns and 16 land, but if you remember back to when you started as a humble farmer with one or two land plots, it can become pretty meaningful. Again, especially if you reinvest earnings, which is the design of the system, right? So I think that both is set up in a way that's aligned, and again creates this opportunity, right? This was never for OGs. The entire design of the program is for for noobs. If you're concerned about leaderboard kind of rankings, at the end of the day, I think in the future there's opportunities with the limited time targeted quests for things that are basically noob only, that would drive points to a leaderboard that kind of separates them out purely from OGs. I think on our end, obviously, when the next tribe leaderboard launches here this month, you're going to see, oh, wow, that like this is the thing for the OGs to grind for. It kind of addresses many of the concerns the community has had today in this very moment around things like gems and jousting and crap. And so that's to me what's very interesting, right? It's like, hey, we've got another leaderboard coming out. It's purely for OGs. The existing leaderboard, around this play to airdrop is predominantly for noobs, right? We could have gone the route and not had a preseason, not given any of y'all points for being here. That didn't feel fair. So again, another example of like, okay, that was a broad question. I'm happy to dive in if there are follow-ups and actually get into more specifics around it. But I do kind of disagree that the existing leaderboard is not good for new players. And again, hear me say this one more time. We've had the most new players enter the game since relaunch, in the entire history of the project since launch, right? Don't be distracted by games that are showing really big free to play numbers and say CU is failing, because every single number I'm talking about represents a paying customer driving value into our ecosystem.
Yes.
Look at what is happening at Pixels as a prime example of you cannot have an infinite number of free to play players next to a small subset of landholders. Look at them struggling with the very same things we've been dealing with for kind of years now, right? The Pirate Nations crew, they've built a great game, but what is the actual conversion to paid and how many paying players do they have? And the reality is we have to be pretty competitive on that front. I know we were larger than them on Polygon prior to their migration. We were pretty damn close even after that. Yes, now they're touting these larger scale numbers. You're seeing it with the beacon. Coming from free to play, I'm just telling you, the vast majority of those users, those players are net extractive, and you're not going to see economies built around that. So it's very important, especially as we go out and we start pitching numbers like, yes, we're going to have a lot of eyeballs on it. We're going to start to share some really big numbers that come in via the Xi campaign. But the most important thing is how many people actually begin to purchase assets and begin to play the game. And if we continue to see that scale at the level that we're at, then you add the enormous amount of CU that's being burned, and you start to see this flywheel spin. So it's really, really, really important that everyone here inside the community, and as we go out and kind of pitch growth that we know we're going up against these narratives that people are excited about, but they're excited about it because we've yet to see them well, Pixels is certainly not looking great.
Well,
And
a
so
lot of
again,
them
as
are
these
hollow.
narratives fall apart, everybody starts to look at it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, two other good examples. I mean, NFL Rivals doesn't have a token, but that product is a great example of, they brag about, what is it, 2 million installs, 10 million installs. It doesn't actually matter that much, because what percentage of those people are buying things and actually engaging in the ecosystem? If most of those installs are, I played for 5 minutes and then didn't do anything else, it's truly a meaningless statistic. That's why DAU used to be the grail statistic, and now it's like, well, there's a lot of botting, so even DAU you got to take with a grain of salt and dig a little bit deeper to see what's driving it. Heroes of Mavia, Heroes of Mavia, however you say it, same kind of thing, right? Their token price after the launch in February is now down to slightly below where they launched at. So yes, there was a really exciting narrative. They got all these app installs, they emitted all these tokens, but there still hasn't been this like underlying demand to really reinvest it back in. And what are we doing with this token aside from just selling it? And obviously all these projects are still working on it and figuring it out. The point is, a lot of these giant narratives around marketing and PR are largely smoke and mirrors. And if you dig deeper, it's like glamour muscle type metrics, and the real like core type metrics that actually denote strength are noticeably missing. So you need to go just a little bit layer deeper. And that's not to say we can't do a better job blasting out our narratives, and we're definitely working on that with Zion, Arbitrum, and others. But also, as Aaron said at the very beginning, we're just a little bit more honest about it. You know, we try not to overpromise and try not to overhype the, hey, you know, look at this crazy thing, so that we get a giant pump and then it all just falls down. We would rather see stable, steady progress, and okay, we're getting 10, 20, 30, 40 new players a day. Okay, over time, this is going to compound. Cool, we're burning 1%, 2%. Great. Like, these little consecutive 1% every day type movements are what we're all about. And I think part of our thesis is that will lead to something that can be more sustainable and hopefully get to a point that has this foundation that we can get it pretty self-sustaining. That's that North Star metric we're working for. So not to dog on every other project in the space, but to pretend that everyone else has it figured out and we're like the only idiots that don't have a clue is really just false. And maybe that's because Aaron and I just don't dress it up as much as we should. I'm not sure.
Well, yeah, for sure. I mean, it's a good point. Like, over the coming weeks, again, you're going to see us begin to tout metrics that I believe are going to rival some of these other projects. We just have to recognize that the big numbers don't matter. It is, what is the scale of the paying players within the community, and is that growing? And so seeing things like treasury revenue increase, as well as, again, our internal DAO metrics, the things going into the data warehouse, is like, we only count a DAO if they already have assets. Like, every single DAO we've ever counted throughout our history has been a paying player and member of the community. And so, again, there's this difference. I recognize, what I'm trying to say is, like, I recognize the meta right now amongst other projects is very much to tout these extremely high fake numbers. And coming from free to play, I just look at that and go, oh my God, you know, you have a bunch of people. Like, look at Pirate Nations. They're saying, oh my God, we can't even scale. And I'm like, wait a second, you're like supposed to be a free to play developer, built Farmville, you have $30 million, and you guys are struggling with scale. Well, what is the outcome there, right? Like, how are you going to get that to work if you're really pitching the idea that we're going to go out and, you know, build that? And I love TerraX putting this hamster game up, which, you know, kind of became the new hotness. And you're like, oh my God, these like clicker games, you know, very clearly bottable experiences that are gonna, you know, that are gonna struggle. You know, one way to counter bots is to actually force the bots to buy something.
Yes,
So
no, that's a great call
it's kind
out.
of an interesting piece, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm embarrassed to say that I hadn't thought about it so plainly, but DAU is not one to one if you're talking about paid versus free to play, right? If our DAU number is 1,500 and every single one of those people has an NFT asset that was either minted or bought, that's different from a game that is purely like, hey, there's this free to play arc where people can just kind of touch 10% of the game and just do a little bit. It's just starter axes. Like, yeah, they're technically players, but comparing those DAU one-to-one, it's just not a one-to-one comparison. It truly is like an apples and oranges. So that's a good, I'm going to start noting that when I share our DAU numbers. Like, that's 1,500 DAU of real shit, you know, of people with assets that are actively playing, not just touching the loop with a stick and logging out. Damn.
Absolutely.
For sure. I mean, again, this is the struggle of a free to play developer where the vast majority of your players didn't add value. And of course, in that way, value is one way directional to the dev, right? So you're building a business around your paying player percentage, which is 1, 2, 3% if you're really lucky, and 4 or 5% if you're in the top like 0.01% of games of all time, right? And that's just the reality of it. So we come from an industry where the vast majority of players don't add value. Now in crypto gaming, where the value flow is, bi-directional, and you're going to see value flow to the community as well as to the developers over time. That gets interesting because now it's like, well, every new member that buys into our community is actually supporting the value of CU through this buyback and burn mechanism, right? So it's again, so much of the problem that every developer in the space is really trying to solve is like, how do we align all of these incentives across a bunch of disparate participants, in a way that's going to keep value inside of the ecosystem and not see it leak out. Again, Hilmar from CCP and Eve, right? He said it best, right? Each of these games that are legitimate crypto games represent an on-chain economy or nation. And the nation that's going to win is going to be the one that gives the best economic opportunity. I continue to deeply believe in that. It's important that the gamified layer on top of that economic foundation is fun and engaging and interesting. And again, there's many, many flavors of fun. We have a very specific flavor of Spreadsheet Warrior fun with the core game. You're going to see another specific flavor of fun with Rainbow Rumble. We had another specific flavor of fun with Unicorn Party. So we continue to try a lot and, drive these experiments home in a way that works. And then auxiliary revenue sources start to get exciting, right? Doing a big toy deal, like we're about to announce our first IRL, deal in the space that will directly drive revenue to the treasury, which of course 50% buyback and burn. We're literally pitching a TV series to streaming platforms at this point. Again, I'm leaking too much alpha here because I've had enough coffee now, but like the whole point here is just like, I wanted CU to be the epicenter of the entire ecosystem, and the tokenomics changes the DAO voted on have really created, I think, a true alignment of incentives across the disparate participants in the economy. Whether you're somebody who came in and has been grinding for years, somebody looking to speculate on the price of tokens, whatever it may be, that is kind of the focus here. I think the last major thing that I want to change with respect to the economy and the game is going to be around Unim. I want to codify Unicorn Milk's monetary policy on chain in a way that is very predictable, and everybody looks at the system and understands how Unim inflation is going to be. So anyway, generally, a lot going on, a lot of exciting things kind of happening in the background. Again, we reached the starting line with the kickoff of migration on, Zai, or on the other side of migration on Zai. And, the future looks bright for everything that we're attempting to do. There's very few projects that are at our level. And, again, we were right next to Pudgy Penguins at the toy fair, or the toy expo in Vegas this year, right? Like, how many other projects are that far along in trying to get brand awareness and stuff? These things take time. And it's really the pain and suffering that we went through last year that enabled us to kind of get into this spot now going forward. And again, I'm trying to pull every ripcord I can possibly think of to drive as much value and interest and attention to our ecosystem as we can.
Well said. We have a very, very important question from Aeolus. Did you make unicorn babies already?
Not yet. I keep making the mistake of sending my good corns to gathering carts, but my claim cycle is this morning, and I'm going to be getting on there and trying to get lucky with those.
I've been pretty lucky. I got a double mythic on my first breed. I'm not a huge breeder. I'm more of a buyer. I buy a meme coin, take some profits, and then just go sweep the floor. I was never a confident Axie breeder either. I'm a battler at heart. Keep an eye out for the breeding video. We're going to call it Breed Jeff's Corns. So episode 1 is still in the edits, but I saw the rough cut this morning and looked good. Got some notes for the next one, so we'll keep improving it. But I'm excited. I told Jeff if he gets really great luck, that I'm going to roast him because he designed the system, and if he gets really bad luck, I'm going to roast him because he designed the system. So that's the angle of the content. Last PSA is, come to Vegas. If you have an open slot in your calendar in August, like August 14 through 17, Rare Evo at Caesar's Palace, we're going to be there. We're going to have a big booth. Community members are welcome. We're going to do some kind of little community dinner thing. Depends on how many people turn up, but it'll probably be fairly intimate. I'll be there. Aaron will be there. Jeff should be there. I think Hyper is going to be there as well. And maybe even a couple other staffers. So if you want to get some FaceTime, if you want to buy Aaron a beer, if you want him to buy you a beer, like this is your opportunity. Come to Vegas. We can put a quarter in a slot machine together. We can try to hit a real life jackpot. We can take a picture. I'm going to see Carrot Top. So if you want to see Carrot Top with Zyori, if that would be fun for you, if you want to be in my TikTok video when we review Carrot Top, come to Vegas. It's going to be really fun. I seriously can't wait. I know Aaron's looking forward to it. But we're trying to use this as an op to meet some community members. It's a little bit of a Cardano conference, so we want to have a strong Arbitrum/Xi presence. I'll film you getting into a fight with a Cardano community member. We're not going to encourage it, but I will stand there on the sidelines and try to break it up. I will throw paint from the sidelines, but it could get pretty heated. Charles is going to be there, so if you want to get a firsthand taste of what Cardano is like and remember why we're very excited to be on Xi, this will be a key conference for you to put on your calendar this cycle.
I hope you guys make it. I'm super excited for it. We do have one more question from Time Traveler. Do we have any update on badges from 2023 moving forward? I love getting badges to stake.
Yeah, badges are going to get distributed for any prior event this month. So those are coming. Obviously, in the middle of everything we had to do for migration, badges were at the bottom of the list. But post the 4th of July holiday, they're back on the list.
I'll also note that I have been pushing for just more badges in general. We've been cautious about making sure we don't dilute existing badges because, if you give them out too much, then the amplifier that they provide gets just a little bit less meaningful. We've thrown around some ideas of maybe putting like an expiration on future badges that give that multiplier so that we can give them out more regularly and not have to worry about that dilution. I've also been in favor of just handing out badges that don't give any kind of multiplier, but are just, hey, you did this, right? I survived this event. I did this task. I was early here. I think of them as almost like little on-chain achievements. I know we're going to have the achievement system coming soon, but I liked that idea of, hey, if you finish the tutorial, give them a freaking badge. It doesn't have to do anything. Just give them a pat on the back that says you did something. It feels great. I would have felt great if I got a badge after I finished the tutorial. So that's where my headspace has been at. So if you have suggestions for activities that would this would be a great low-hanging fruit free badge, my DMs are always open, always looking for opportunities to give players digital shout outs. I think that's my new thesis.
Absolutely.
Aldan's not impressed, but that's okay.
That GIF, though. All right. That concludes our town hall. We are out of questions. If you want to ask a question, please leave it in the thread and we'll do our best to answer them later. We'll post a recording of this on our socials if you would like to give it a real listen. And don't forget to share this with your friends and fellow Unicorn fam who couldn't make it. If you have more burning questions, feel free to reach out on our support channels, the Mod Support channel and the Ask LG Team channel. This has been Sparkly Unicorn with Stealthy and Tech, hosting co-founder and CEO Aaron and growth director Zyori. Good morning, good night, and see you in game, Unicorn fam. Woo-hoo.
Ooh.
Ooh woo.